All right, we have a lot to get to today. So folks are still trickling in, but we're going to get started. So welcome everybody to session 2 of Track C. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Shannon Brenner, and I am so excited to be with my team and be with you all here to continue on this conversation about healthy food and breaking down the barriers. Recording of our first session is on the MFCP website and also in your participant packet. But whether you're joining us, whether you were able to join us last week or this is your first time being with us in the Convergence today, you're so welcome, and you're exactly where you need to be here with us. So thank you for joining today. Welcome to session 2. Here we go. There are a couple ways of connecting outside of the sessions that I just want to plug real quick. The first is the network map that we showed a little bit about as folks were trickling in at the beginning. But we also have a Slack channel, which is a great way to continue conversation. So if you haven't already signed up, you can follow the link in the chat and set up a Slack account and join our channel after today's session. So as we're all arriving into this space together after maybe a long day of other Zoom calls or what other responsibilities we all might have today, I'd like to invite my teammate, Christina, to lead us in a grounding embodiment exercise to help us be in this room together and be in this space. So thank you, Christina.
Hi all, it's really nice to be here with you. So this is just going to be a 2 to 3 minute little grounding exercise. We'll do a few breaths and then some very gentle stretching, but please go slow and listen to your body, and whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, please do that. And if it feels more comfortable, you're welcome to turn off your camera. But to start, we'll just find a comfortable seat, plant the feet flat on the earth, about hips distance apart. Hands can rest on the lap. And we'll just take a deep breath in through the nose. Open and sigh out through the mouth. 2 more times just like that. Deep breath in through the nose. Open and sigh out through the mouth. And then deep breath in, deepest breath of the day so far. Pause for just a second, and then open and sigh out through the mouth. And you're welcome to keep the eyes closed or cast a soft gaze downwards. We'll just drop the right ear to the right shoulder, and then bring the chin to the chest, and then rock the left ear to the left shoulder. Come back to center, right ear, right shoulder, and then one more time, chin to chest, left ear, left shoulder, chin to chest, right ear, right shoulder. Come back up to center, and then we'll just do some shoulder rolls backwards a couple times. And then you can switch forwards, and then interlacing the fingers, reaching up, big tall stretch, and then arc over to one side. If it feels okay for the neck, you can look up towards the ceiling. Then deep breath into the center, stretch again tall, arc to the other side, maybe peek under that arm towards the ceiling. Coming back to center, releasing the hands down, and then just a gentle twist. So you can put your left hand on your right thigh, spine tall, turning. And just a breath here. And then coming back to center, twisting to the other side. Right hand can find the left thigh. Deep breath in and out, and then coming back to center. And then just one small thing that I wanted to offer. It's easy to do on Zoom if you're starting to feel maybe anxious or a little activated. This can be really lovely, just gently holding your hand and stroking with your thumb. And it's really lovely for the nervous system because you're simultaneously soothing yourself and being soothed. So, a little something that you might take with you moving forward. But really glad to be here with y'all. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves.
Thank you, Christina. I'm going to be doing that just out of sight of you all for the rest of the evening. Just kidding. I'm doing really good right now thanks to that wonderful grounding. Thank you, Christina. So while we're being intentional in our opening here, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement. We farm, fish, garden, and work on the unceded territory of the Wabanaki Confederacy. Wabanaki peoples have stewarded the beautiful land we now call Maine for thousands of years and continue to today. The Maine Food Convergence Project stands in solidarity with Wabanaki land, food, water, and cultural sovereignty. We reckon with the past and ongoing harm and violence of colonization, acknowledging the land is one small step of a long journey of truth-telling, atonement, and repair that can guide us towards a regenerative and equitable food system here. I'd like to take a brief moment of silence to honor the Wabanaki Confederacy. We must center Wabanaki leadership in order to vision a regenerative and equitable Maine food system. This looks like decolonization, reparations, and rematriation, and more. Refer to the racial equity in the food system resource guide sent out in your participant packet for more information on these terms, and we'll also put it in the chat along with some other resource links to Wabanaki-led initiatives in the state. So a few tech notes, as I'm sure we're all Zoom experts at this point, but just a few little reminders. If we are Zoom bombed, which hopefully won't happen, we do have a backup account and we will quickly email you a different link to restart this meeting. Please mute your phone unless you're talking, or mute yourself in general unless you're talking, please. If you need a bio break, please go take care of yourself. Just don't log off. Just put yourself on mute. You can turn your camera off and come back when you're ready to join the group again. For tech questions, you can privately message Hazel, who is our tech person for the day. And I want to also give a little note here. If you want to adjust your screen so you can see slides and people, there's a little bar between where folks' images are and where the notes are if you're in gallery mode, and that can be slid to change the ratio of the people you see versus the slides. You can also change the view by clicking on view in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom window. You can go to speaker view versus gallery view. Those are your two options. And if you're in full screen, you can always hit escape to get out of that full screen view. One last quick tech note, we are recording today's session with the exception of the breakout rooms. So we'll be taking some screenshots. So if you don't consent to having your image as part of these files, feel free to just turn off your camera moving forward. I'd like to shout out my awesome team that is here with me today. Amari Fiji from the Maine Environmental Education Association. Myself, Shannon Brenner, I'm with the Community Food Matters Food Council. Rachel Emus is with Healthy Acadia and Maine Gleaning Network. Harriet Van Vleck from Maine Network of Community Food Councils and Mary Meeting Food Council. Christina Cololo from the Somali Bantu Community Association and Cumberland County Food Security Council, Mary Turner from the Good Shepherd Food Bank, Alexis Guy, who is doing tech support today, doing the slides for some healthy communities of the capital area and Maine Snap Ed, and Hazel Onsard, who is our tech wizard, and she is at Curtis Memorial Library. We also have some amazing breakout room facilitators in the house today who are helping us with the breakout room. So as always, so much gratitude to our breakout room facilitators as well today. So we can't do the usual interacting and networking here in person today. So we are just going to do a little bit of speed networking in a really quick breakout room, just so we can see some more faces and get to talk to a few more people than we normally would. So, now that we just saw who was in the Zoom, we're gonna just take a second to think who's not in the Zoom. These were groups of people that were identified in feedback from session 1. as folks that like we want to have more of at the table that we haven't had so far. So farmers and food producers, people who are impacted by food security with lived experience, young people, quote unquote regular people. I mean, I think we're all regular people, but just folks who just enjoy eating food and are just want to be involved in work with like this. School system players and specifically school cooks, local religious institutions, current processing facilities and restaurants, and then lawmakers. So as we continue on through this convergence, we can keep inviting more people to join our conversation. So I just wanted to put this out here as an invite for you all. If you have these types of people in your life, like reach out and ask them to come join us either in this conversation that's happening in the session. Obviously a little too late for today, but for next week, we have one more session. And then also there'll be more work beyond this convergence. So please feel free to reach out to folks, especially if you know anyone in these specific situations or specific experiences that would be able to join us. We would love to continue to broaden our outreach and broaden the scope of what we're able to talk about and work together on. So just a little bit of quick background to remind ourselves, the mission of this big food convergence is to develop deeper relationships and greater trust as we co-create an equitable, thriving food system for Maine. But also like to remind us of our theory of change here. We saw this last week. And again, this is sort of an overarching framework for this track. And it's a way for us to capture and organize the ideas that have been generated. So today we're going to talk about the strategies and the activities. We'll start to be able to plug those in to figure out how we're going to get from where we are to where we want to go, which, our vision of a equitable and accessible, healthy food for everybody. So looking at our sessions that we're working through today, or working through together as a convergence. Last week, we identified priorities. We identified top priorities. And then this week, we're going to take a headfirst dive into visioning and strategizing for collective action by developing those top priorities. How exactly we organize for collective action is in session 3 will kind of depend on the types and frankly the quantity of strategies and activities that are generated in today's session. So we'll see how this process unfolds from here. So what are the priorities we're going to be diving into today? You should have all received the chosen priorities document in an email this week. It's also in your participant packet, and we'll also drop a link in the chat that has this info on it. But these priorities were shaped by the voting that took place at the end of session 1, as well as feedback from session 1 jam boards. As you'll see in the case of priority 2 and priority 3 on this list, the original priorities were combined based on how conversations were flowing and kind of coming together in the breakout rooms. So I hope folks can see the synergy there and that folks are excited about at least one of these top priorities for today's discussion. I also just want to note that education was also highly ranked, and we see that as being able to fit into any of these priorities since we have a lot of educational expertise in the room, and we hope that that shines through in our discussions. We encourage folks to bring that perspective in to their breakout rooms if they would like to. So the top priorities we have are advocate for consumer economic empowerment, address infrastructure barriers to access, such as community development and transportation, using the lens of food apartheid. And finally, develop partnerships between local producers and fisher folks and organizations and institutions to increase access and distribution centers. So those are what we have to work with today, and I hope that you all are super excited to work with them. So we, on this next slide here, we've listed all of the top track priorities for all the other tracks, just for your reference, if you're curious. But now it's time to sign up for one of our track C priorities. So you should have received a link to this document this morning with your session reminder. But for those of you who didn't or haven't had a chance to get in there, if you could please open up the spreadsheet that's being put in the chat to sign up for a breakout room. You can put your name in the participant column or facilitator column for facilitators who haven't had a chance to sign up yet, under the priority you want to discuss today. Only facilitators need to put first or second choice, just so we can see where the numbers are, and we appreciate flexibility on the part of facilitators as we assign the breakout rooms based on people's interests. Participants should be able to go to a priority of their choosing. If you're unable to access the Google Doc for any reason, please message Harriet Van Vleck on the chat, and she can put your name in there with the priority that you want to be on. And if you're on the phone and unable to access the sheet or message Harriet, we just ask you to please stay in the main room after we launch the rooms, and we'll add you to a breakout based on your verbal request at that time. So if folks just want to take a minute to get into this spreadsheet here, and but then we'll, before we welcome our track speakers to the metaphoric stage, we'll just take a minute to fill this out. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. Just take a minute for folks who are joining us. Just check out the chat there. There's a link to a spreadsheet. We're just asking folks to sign up for which priority they would like to spend time discussing today. And we will build our breakout rooms based around people's interests, what topic they want to discuss in our breakout rooms today. So we'll just give folks one more minute to do that. The spreadsheet is in the chat. So if you want to take another minute to think about it, we do have a little bit more time before our break, before you'll need to make a decision. So just definitely get your name in there. But we will now move on to our track speakers. Today, we are so grateful to be joined by Erin Calloway, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Piscataquest Regional Food Center in Dover Foxcroft. Erin, are you with us?
I am. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no, you're good. We're so glad that you're here.
Yeah, I'm here in my car.
Perfect.
I had to jump in on route back from Boston. So
oh, thank you so much for making the time for us today. And,
I'm happy to be here.
We're so excited to hear from you and the work that you're doing in Piscataques County. So please, Erin, take it away.
Okay, great. Well, I just hello everybody. Lots of faces. I just zipped over our logo to Mary, who was going to send it to Hazel, but it looks like you had a very nice picture there in the beginning. Anyway, so that's fine. Well, thank you for having me today. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you grabbed that. Yeah. So I am the executive director of Piscataquest Regional Food Center. We're located in Dover Foxcroft, Maine. I understand I have about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we're a little touch ahead of schedule, but your 10 minutes is good.
Okay. So as Mary and I determined yesterday, I could talk for 10 hours, but I've been working on trying to boil this down to 10 minutes. I'm going to hit you with some sort of bare bone facts, because I think that's probably the best way to describe who we are and what we're doing. Piscataquest Regional Food Center is we're a food aggregation and redistribution hub. And a lot of people off the bat get us confused. They think that we're a food pantry, a very large food pantry, and we're not a food pantry. We do happen to be an agency with Good Shepherd, so we have some of the benefits of being a pantry, but we operate on a much larger scale. We have several areas of focus. We're all about a mission of helping people, connecting people to sources of healthy food. And we do a lot of moving of bulk food, large amounts of food. We have smaller programs where we do some home delivery service for homebound seniors. But we're all about connecting the resources that are available to people in Piscataquest County, and working with Good Shepherd on a very exciting project to find a new way to get more food to more people more frequently, especially in the rural parts of Maine. So we were officially founded in 2017, but the work that's gone into creating Piscataquest Regional Food Center goes back many, many years before that, kind of born out of doing a lot of different work in different parts of the community, some having to do with food, some not having to do with food. And eventually, and finding ourselves in a place where we had the opportunity to really get involved with local food systems, including hunger relief, by purchasing a building that's right in the middle of Dover Foxcroft, and that seemed to be the perfect location to store and move large amounts of food. For those of you who might know Dover Foxcroft, we're in the former Agway building across from the Bears Den, so that helps you understand where we are. We were kind of born out of the necessity to help a new food cupboard in Dover Foxcroft get started after one that had been operating for about 30 years closed down pretty abruptly. And I was involved with the group of community members that came together to help keep that food cupboard going. And that was really my crash course and introduction into the need for hunger relief in Piscataquest County itself. So a little bit about what we do as an aggregation and redistribution center. So primarily, we have this wonderful partnership with Good Shepherd Food Bank, where we are working on figuring out how to move more food more frequently, more effectively to all of the pantries throughout Piscataquest County, and some of them in Penobscot as well. This means this has been about 3 years in the making, getting us to a point where we're finally hitting go and implementing the plans that we've been working on together for the past couple of years. Piscataquest Regional Food Center operates Good Shepherd's, what they call their Dexter route. So that was their distribution route that ran all the way from Milo, Maine, down to Newport and everywhere in between. So we, as a redistribution center, now operate that route. We're able to do this because we have, because of our physical infrastructure. And so we have basically a 5,500 square foot facility, of which 2,500 square feet is a warehouse where we have room for dry storage of pallets. We have an additional 1,000 square feet that is used by a local food cupboard. They rent space from us, and that's one way that we generate some income to put into the operation. We also have, I went over the square footage stuff before and I keep stumbling over it, but we also have a 12 by 12 freezer and an additional 13 by 28 cool refrigerated area, plus an additional 36-foot refrigerated trailer outside that we can use for either freezer space or refrigerated space. And so we have lots and lots of room. We have 2 loading docks, one that we can fill up, we use for small deliveries to run a small van, but we have a large loading dock on our property as well that can accommodate the big 53-foot trucks that are coming from Good Shepherd. And we're the only place in Piscataquest that can handle that kind of truck coming in. So what we've been able to do is, by taking on the responsibility for that Dexter route, we have made it possible for Good Shepherd to come to our area more frequently. They used to come once a month or twice a month, but now they're coming every Monday with that truck, mostly fully loaded. And then we take everything off there and we redistribute it out to the pantries around the area. But aside from, we're not just moving that food, we have the ability to bring out other foods to the pantries that we are distributing to. So we'll take in a few thousand pounds of fresh produce from a local farm and bring that out along with all the stuff that's come in from Good Shepherd. The benefit, and that happens a lot. We've been receiving tons and tons of bread from a bakery a little bit south, I guess in southern Maine, and they bring us sometimes 900 loaves of bread a week that we will turn around and can bring out with this other food that we're redistributing to the pantries. So the benefit, there's lots and lots of benefits of all this, and benefits to Good Shepherd, benefits to the pantry, and of course benefits to the community members that in the end are receiving the food. The neat thing that's been happening with the pantries, for example, is because we are right there, we're so close to them. We're so much closer to them and than Good Shepherd. And so we are able to respond more quickly to unexpected deliveries of lots of produce or other foods from sources besides Good Shepherd. We're able to kind of specialize deliveries to some of these pantries. We have been able to bring on pantries that Good Shepherd couldn't reach themselves because they're a little bit too remote and in tough spaces to deliver to. So we were able to help bring them online because the food comes to us and then we bring it out to them. There's a few pantries that we've been able to relieve them of the burden of having to go to Good Shepherd in Hamden to pick up food. They no longer have to pick up food because we will bring it to them. And I'm told repeatedly how much they love that. So that's been, that's an example of how we're getting more food out to more people more frequently. And of course, it all benefits the community members in the end because there's, especially when it comes to connecting them with fresh stuff that's coming from a lot of the local farms, but sort of all around Maine, from the Mainers Feeding Mainers program, and from farms that local farms that find themselves with overages that they hadn't planned on, that we're able to sort of pick up and turn right around and get it out into the food system really fast. We also, some of the other things we do are mobile distributions, and the need for mobile distributions has kind of picked up with COVID. By mobile distributions, what we mean is taking our box truck, which is 20-foot refrigerated box truck, filling that up with pallets and going out into towns where there isn't an established pantry or where they're working on building a pantry, but to haven't quite gotten it up and running yet. The best example of that for us is in the town of Dexter. We've done several mobile distributions for them down there, and they're right in the middle of their town. Each time we do that, we're putting out like about 100 to 150 boxes of food. And we're kind of filling a need for them as they work on creating their own pantry in town. One thing I just jumped right over and neglected to mention is the amount of food that we're talking about moving every year. So with Good Shepherd alone, with that Dexter route that I mentioned, we are moving about 700,000 pounds of food a year. That's just for the amount of food that's being ordered by the agencies along that route. But in addition, we're moving, we figure another, we're also doing the mega distributions where these are the distributions of the emergency COVID boxes that have been coming into the state. And each truckload of those boxes is around 1,000 to 1,200 boxes of food, which is about 30,000 some odd pounds of food. That's on top of the 700,000 that we're moving for just sort of regular Good Shepherd deliveries. So it's really great to be able to provide that access to people as well. So last year we did 4 of those mega distributions. So it was about 120,000 pounds more than on top of the 700 for Good Shepherd. We expect to do another 4 of those at least this year. We've already done 1 this year. So
that's really fantastic, Erin.
It's a lot of food.
yeah. If you just want to share one final thought with us.
I guess what it all comes down to is that we see a lot of overlap and a lot of opportunities here to bring together community resources and do more collectively to help people get healthy foods. And it's a never-ending story. There's always new stuff coming up, and I would love 10 hours to talk about it, but we'll suffice with the 10 minutes now.
I know. I wish we could have more. I do want to ask you, is there contact info either for yourself or your organization that we could pass along to folks who have questions for you?
Yes, absolutely. So our website is just www.prfoodcenter.org. You can reach me at Erin, E-R-I-N, at prfoodcenter.org, my email, and my phone number is 207-343-0171. And please do visit the website, and please feel free to email or call if you want to chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin, for joining us en route from Boston. This is so wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Folks,
thank you very much.
Questions about this awesome model of distribution and aggregation, please reach out to the food center, and we can get more of this sort of collaboration happening, especially in rural areas. You're doing tremendous work, Erin. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm probably going to hop off because we got to keep driving.
No worries. Safe travels.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. So next up, we have perhaps a familiar face to many of you. Ken Morse is a veteran of the Maine food system scene here in Maine. I said Maine twice, there we go. And he's a strong proponent of networks. He currently is co-coordinator of the Maine Network of Community Food Councils and is organizing the Maine Food Policy Working Group to coordinate advocacy across the state. So he's joining us today to help thread policy through our work in this session and moving forward. So Ken, I think I saw your little square out there. Yes, there you are. Hi, Ken. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, it's good to be here and to see old friends and meet new ones. If somebody could put the slides up, slide 15, I think it was that. Yeah, I'm here to talk about the policy work that we're trying to integrate into the convergence work. As this policy said, as this slide says, policy is a tool for translating our values into action and to leverage public support and resources. And really, as things become laws, then they take on a lot more oomph to get things done. The main food policy work group was formed about 2 years ago, but has really geared up with this legislative session, which started in December. The legislators submitted 2,000 bills, and we've identified 100 that are food-related bills. And it's a little bit tricky because all the bills go through this, what's called the revisor's office, and it takes them a while to translate them into legal language, and then they get published. So only about a third have been published. Once they're published, they get an LD number. I've listed here bills of the 100 that we're tracking that are kind of related to this, to the track C. And you can see only 3 of them so far have been published. One thing, and you can read them, and we will be doing follow-up to share a lot more information. Primarily, the work group is, I'm helping with the work group to publish a weekly newsletter about the legislation as they get published. And I would urge all of you to subscribe to that. I sent it out to all the participants in the convergence on Monday, and we've had 120 people, 20 of you sign up so far. But that's the best way for you to learn how you can support good food policy in Maine. And you can see here, there's a lot of bills about ending hunger. As you know, the legislature started last session to consider a policy of ending hunger by 2030. And so there's a number of bills here that are related to that. There's also a number of bills here related to farm to school and getting more good food into schools. So I hope you will subscribe, if you haven't, to the newsletter. We're doing it every week, and I'll be sending out another one either tomorrow or Monday as bills get published. And the newsletter has the sponsors, the legislators who are sponsoring it, the information about when the hearings are, how to tune into hearings, and all that. So the work group was largely formed because 2 years ago, when we started to have a more progressive state government and legislature, we found it very hard to find out what was going on. So we're trying to do this, and there's lots of different partner groups like CEI and MOFCA and Farm to Institution, which kind of houses the work group, and many others. Good Shepherd Food Bank, Full Plates, Full Potentials. A whole lot of groups are helping out. And I guess we could go to the next slide, please. So you can help by subscribing to the news. You can also help by getting in touch and sending in information. If your group has priorities that you want to encourage others to support, go ahead and get in touch, and we'll put that information in the newsletter. The other thing you can do is during these sessions of the convergence, you can be eyes and ears and trying to listen for policy opportunities. We're of course focused on current legislation, but we're also looking forward to policy work in the future that may not be before the legislature right now. If you are really interested in something, there are ways to submit testimony at hearings, and the newsletter will have that. And that's pretty much it. I want to keep this short. The one thing I did want to do is a shout out to the Cumberland County Food Security Council. They're hosting a food policy forum on the 12th of March, 2 weeks from tomorrow. And I'll post in the chat the registration link for that. But it looks like there's going to be a lot of legislators and a lot of conversations that kind of extend a lot of the conversations that we've are having here at the Convergence.
That's great, Ken. Thank you. There is a quick question in the chat. Someone asked if there are translations available for the language in these bills. I'm not sure what translations that person is referring to, if they want to chime in real quick to clarify that.
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that, but I could certainly ask that question to some of the legislators. And so I think there may be for some of the bills, but I'm not sure.
So something to follow up on. I'm sure Ken is happy to chat with anyone interested in figuring that out.
Right.
Also, Rachel put a link in the chat here to the spreadsheet you had, Ken, of all the different bills for all the tracks. So if folks want to look at that spreadsheet, all the info is in there as well. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ken, for anchoring our policy integration there. I urge everyone to sign up for the policy newsletter, so we can all stay in the loop on how we can be part of the advocacy for a better food system at the policy level at the State House here in Maine. So thank you, Ken. Well, quick shout out, just a reminder, folks, if you haven't gotten in that spreadsheet yet to sign up for your breakout room, please do so. If we could get that link in the chat just one more time for folks, please sign up for which priority you'd like to work with if you haven't done that already. And we'll be going to break shortly, and when we come back from break, we'll be talking more about the breakout rooms. But before we go to break, I'd like to invite my teammate Amara to come forward and share a little bit about our community agreements and other information to set us up. Thanks, Amara.
Awesome, thank you, Shannon. So just as a reminder, here at the Convergence, as we are co-creating space, we have a set of community working agreements that we are going to abide to ensure that everyone feels comfortable sharing in the space that we are creating. And so these are adopted by the Maine Environmental Education Association, and they're also in your participant packet as well. And so these agreements are: we are present, we are imperfect, we are transparent, brave, empathetic communicators. We have a right to self-determination. We prioritize process, and we are better together. Next slide, please. Another reminder is that we also have support available. As we are co-creating this space, we are engaging in dialogue about some pretty difficult issues, that being food insecurity and topics related to it. So if you would like to talk about anything you find challenging as you are conversing in your breakout rooms today, as well as in our future sessions, please email this email that you see on your screen, and you can schedule a confidential meeting with a support person. And they are available for both white and BIPOC folks as well. Moving into our breakout room session, wanted to share a grounding quote before we start to engage in some very meaningful conversation with one another. Meaningful collaboration both relies on and deepens relationships. The stronger the bond between people or groups in collaboration, the more possibility you can hold. In beginning this work, notice you feel drawn to and where you find ease, and notice who challenges you, who makes the edges of your ideas grow or fortify. I find that my best work has happened during my most challenging collaborations because there are actual differences that are converging and creating more space, ways forward that serve more than one worldview. And this is from The Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown. So we are getting ready for a quick break, 10-minute break before our breakout rooms. And so this is just a reminder to our breakout room facilitators to queue up your Jam boards and open those up to prep anything that you need to prep before the breakout rooms that are coming up shortly. You will be made co-host as well. So if you see any additional notifications, just go ahead and you can disregard those. It's a feature of being made co-host, of course. And once again, a huge thank you to our breakout room facilitators. And
Welcome back, folks. We're still waiting for a few rooms to get in their last words. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Everyone should be here with us, whether you want to be or not. I'm sure you all were having really wonderful conversations in your groups. Thank you so much again to our breakout room facilitators for working through those prompts with everyone, and I cannot wait to hear what everyone has to say. So I'm going to call on people based on the breakout room facilitator's name and like have everyone from priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 speak together. So when I call your breakout room facilitator name, if the facilitator's not speaking, if just whoever was in that group could report back. And we'll have, about a minute or so. So try to keep it as brief as possible and just share with us an activity or activities that really had a lot of energy behind it, something that your group was really excited about moving forward. So to start, I'm going to ask someone from priority 1 from Jim Hanna's group, if they could share to start us off with.
We had an amazing group, and Vera agreed to present for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vera. I'll be presenting on behalf of our group. We talked about a lot of things. So just to be really concise, we talked about advocating for cross-sector policy development, including support for grassroots efforts and bridging both food systems and economic justice advocates. One example of policy to advocate for would be raising the minimum wage to make it match a living wage. We also talked about incorporating people with lived experiences into this process and shifting the narrative, thinking about communications and sharing more stories. If anybody else wants to chime in. Oh, and one other thing that we talked about was kind of shifting the conversation away from talking about people as consumers, which was one of the central parts of the way that we talked about our priority, but shifting away from thinking of people as consumers to thinking of people as people, humans, parts of communities, etc. Yeah.
I so love that last point. Thank you for bringing that up. I know that we have the word consumer in that priority, and it can definitely be problematized. So thank you for doing just that. I think it's interesting that priority 1 was the most highly voted priority, but there was only one priority group, people like enough for one group for the people signed up for. So that's just interesting. I'm really glad that there were some folks that were wanting to tackle that priority, though. Thank you so much. Moving on to priority 2, someone from Peter's group, if you could please share.
Hey everybody, Jimmy from the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets here. Our group had a great discussion. A lot of activities were mentioned, but some that really stood out were education and farm to school, building connections and partnerships among farmers and local school systems, getting fresh fruits and veggies into the classroom through nutrition education, and just having kids more familiar with food and nutrition. A few other things that we discussed would be, let's see, I was really feeling passionate about, and a lot of us were agreeing on just revitalizing rural communities and the challenges of that, and thinking about how local incentives to or financing to help support food access in rural communities and keeping local food affordable and competitive with the industrial food system can both address equity issues and climate change. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. And sorry, just a reminder, priority 2, we are talking about addressing infrastructure to improve actors like community development and transportation through the lens of food apartheid. I meant to say that before we started talking about priority 2. So thank you, Jimmy, for sharing. Darcy, someone from your group?
Yeah, hey, it'll be me. So we talked a lot about making better usage of infrastructures that are already in place, like schools, public libraries, doctors' offices, and making sure that there's food resources available there, but also having childcare available, access to equipment that people would need for food processing and information for food processing. So I thought that was a really cool thing. We talked about like building up those pre-existing infrastructures, but then also expanding out and identifying areas like where there's no infrastructure in place, and really taking that model and expanding it out to there. And then of course, public transportation and better rural transportation that can be done in a climate friendly way, whether that's like electric vehicles used as a fleet for rural transportation. And then the other thing we talked a lot about was really supporting land trust and land access groups, especially those that are focusing on getting land into the hands of BIPOC communities. Those were our 3 big things, I think. Guys, feel free to chime in if there's anything I missed that was super important to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And our tech facilitator, Hazel, is plugged into the library world. So maybe if anyone wants to talk about that, she just dropped that message in there. So yay, libraries. Someone from Justin's group, can we hear from you all?
Hey, everybody. We had an awesome group, and I'd like to hand it off to Tyler.
Hey, friends. So we talked a lot about just more equity things. We talked about the need for public transportation and how there are plenty of models worldwide for rural public transportation being a success. We talked about education. It sounds like very similar conversation about bringing that education into schools and into more spaces so that food access, food education, and access to places to grow food are more common. We also talked about trying to actively reduce food waste and through gleaning and municipal composting. And we talked a lot about the need for local mutual aid networks, as well as larger networks to sort of increase sharing, increase connectivity, increase coordination between all of the members and the nodes of the food system. And then we talked a lot about just needing a lot more distribution in our food system, growing, producing, so that there's something happening near you, and it's not just your own garden, but it's a proper farm where you can really buy more of your food. And then we also talked a little bit about learning from indigenous folks and how you know, a lot of the Wabanaki folks here in Maine have been practicing sustainable agriculture for thousands of years, and that there's something for the colonial culture to really learn from that. And then I just want to put a plug in for thriving wages. If everybody earned more than a living wage, they would have the money to buy the food and access the things that they need to in general.
Yes. Thank you, Tyler. Someone from Malaya's group would like to share for our last priority 2 group.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so we also had a really great conversation, and thank you to everyone in my group for your ideas. We talked about uplifting farmers, and particularly farmers of color, and making farming a viable career option by supporting policies that support and provide federal funding to farmers who do organic, specialty, and vegetable crops. because we kind of got to that because we were talking about produce not being affordable and also just farming not really being a viable career and wanting more farms. We also talked about food hubs as being a really important thing, particularly because of the clientele people were seeing who in our group who work for food access organizations. Were seeing a lot of clientele who were not really able to transport themselves to get food or transport themselves very far. So seeing food hubs as a good thing there. And then also we talked about offering educational or food access programs within systems that people are already participating in, such as public schools, prisons, or other programs like that.
Awesome. Starting to see a lot of overlap and maybe some merging of the priorities here. We have so much good info out there. Lauren and Colleen, someone from your group, please.
Yeah, I'll share out. We talked a lot about universal free meals. I'm just going to turn my camera off because I think my Wi-Fi is choppy. We talked about universal free meals because that's something that has the idea has been around for a long time, but COVID has shed light on why it can be more equitable and definitely goes along with the theme of food justice. And pairing that with obviously advocacy at every level is really important to get that to happen. And yeah, just talking about like also food hubs were mentioned, and then education as a general concept across sectors statewide on the importance of local food access and supporting local farmers was really important to our group.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. So sorry, again, we're on priority 3 now, which is the partnerships with local producers and like institutions and organizations to build those distribution points and access points for people. Someone from Allie's group on priority 3 could share out.
Yeah, so I'll be doing the sharing for my group. Similar to what Lauren just said, we also talked about like free and reduced breakfast and lunch. But one thing early on that we talked about that was a barrier was like removing the stigma, and I feel like of needing help for food. And so that was something that carried out, I felt like, through our whole conversations. But a lot of things we talked about were just continuing to keep the urgency and momentum that was created after COVID. You know, there's a lot of programs that were introduced because of the pandemic, and kind of like working with organizations that maybe weren't food focused, but were people focused, and then became food focused once everyone needed help. So continuing to build on those partnerships. And then towards the end, we were talking a lot about working with grocery stores and also, you know, the Hannafords and the Shaws, and like trying to do, you know, figure out better waste management, and also just strengthening connections in the relationship with organizations that help rescue food. And so, yeah, I don't know if that was mentioned earlier on, but that was definitely a group that we thought should come to this table that we're talking about, built, you know, getting more grocery store, big company people making the decisions, and then also kind of your local Hannafords as well. So I hope that captured well. I'm trying to stay under a minute.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Allie. Rachel, someone from your group want to share priority 3?
Yeah, I'm Ian, and I'm going to share for that group. We talked about more farms. That was one of the things that we decided was a priority, was more farms. And we wondered if there could be links to more land access to new farms and more training for new farmers. And then we also talked about living wages for farmers. And with that, we were curious maybe if there could be less restrictive funding. So being able to have for-profit farms apply for grants that they could then get paid to donate their produce to food security operations, similar to Mainers Feeding Mainers, or just more of programs like Mainers Feeding Mainers. We talked about education as well, and how to educate food pantries to teach their clients, and maybe not clients, to teach people how to use fresh produce and teach people how to store produce in different ways to make it last longer. What else?
You just have to keep moving. We're running out of time, Ian. I'm so sorry.
Wait, one more. This one was cool. Creating gardens in people's yards for free with seeds and gardening support.
Woo. Yes, dope. I agree. All right. Sorry, we're just gonna have to keep wrapping up real quick here. So 3 more groups. So Mary, please, someone from your group like to share.
I got it. It's Ron.
Awesome.
We're keeping it at 45 seconds. Ready? So we kind of tailored down to a common thread of the community food center. We're looking at whether those are providing both education, food access, both for a pantry or for sales to help generate the funds to do this. Those could be hubs both to increase the amount of produce from multiple farmers, but also to get some of those farmers who don't want to do retail to be able to be back in the fields producing more. So it's really came out of the thread of maximizing the capacity of the food pantries, farmers markets, and educational resources for everybody.
Awesome. Great model. Thank you, Ron. Someone from Becca's group like to share?
I'll be sharing. Thanks everyone who's in my group. That was great. Some common things here: destigmatizing where or how we feed ourselves, that feeding ourselves should be feeding ourselves. Inspiring and empowering a generation to love and value food and the role it plays in the community. So in our schools, all the great organizations that already are doing that, building that. Talked a lot about food sovereignty, availability, and access to culturally relevant foods, and also how that ties into equitable access to farmland and how that's distributed. Availability and infrastructure around processing foods that are grown here for distribution, but also education around how people can extend the harvest at home past the short growing season we have. I wrote living wage, but thank you, Tyler. A thriving wage came up many times. And lastly, we talked a lot about the Mainers feeding Mainers type model, and building that, just keeping Maine food in Maine, growing jobs, and growing our economy that way. And specifically, there was talk about including fisheries, which it sounds like is already happening, but growing that sort of thing where we're including more and more different producers in Maine in that system that keeps the food here.
Awesome. Thank you, Becca. And last but not least, someone from Christina's group. Can we hear from you all?
We had such a lovely group, and I'm going to pass it off to Sherry, who has kindly offered to share out.
So really quick, we talked about an app or software program to connect farms, restaurants, and institutions with places that need food, and that we thought that should be coordinated at the state level, and to make sure that they can connect those people on both sides of that. We talked about more shared community storage space, dry, freezer, and refrigerator, and consolidating storage efforts at the town or county level. We talked about collaboration of services between local agents, food access agencies, to better serve the community. And last but not least, just for Mick, on the thing of stigma, we said we need to eliminate stigma, and that all food banks, food pantries, and soup kitchens should change their names to community food hubs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. We're gonna be up to our eyeballs in sticky notes and these jam boards going through all of your wonderful feedback. So thank you so much for sharing. And we are just about done here with our time together tonight. Thank you so much for everyone who has come tonight. There's a Google form that we ask you all if you could give us some feedback on this session. We are really hoping to hear from you all, and you're really shaping the trajectory of this convergence and what we're doing. So if you all could please fill out this feedback form by end of day on Saturday, it'll give us some time to process it and bring back lots of wonderful information for you all for next Thursday for our final session, session 3. Facilitators, if you do have a few minutes, we will be staying on the call here. If you want to debrief, it's an optional 5 to 10 minute debrief for facilitators once we hang up the call here. With that, there's been some really good info in the chat. If folks want to look out some bills that have just been mentioned, check out that policy newsletter that Ken was talking about. I really hope you all are walking away with some good ways to become engaged and starting to move some action forward. So to leave us tonight, I just want to share this quote because I think it really articulates what we're trying to do here. There is an art to flocking, staying separate enough not to crowd each other, aligned enough to maintain a shared direction, and cohesive enough to always move towards each other. So I really hope we can keep flocking together, holding space for each other, and to keep moving forward in this work together. So thank you all so much for being here. You'll be hearing from us again soon about all the exciting stuff we're going to do next week in session 3. So thank you so much for being here. And if facilitators want to stay on, we can chat for a few more minutes, but other folks have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you so much.